There's one habit, just one, that if you build it, everything else in your life starts fixing itself. Not your diet, not your sleep, not your productivity system. One single habit that sits underneath all of those things and quietly controls whether they succeed or fail. And the wild part? Most people are trying to fix 10 things at once, when really they only needed to fix this one. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it is, why it works, and how to actually start building it today. Not in some vague, just try harder way, but with a real, specific first step. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's the thing almost nobody tells you about self-improvement. We treat every habit like it's its own separate project. Want to work out more? That's a fitness problem. Want to eat better? That's a nutrition problem. Want to stop scrolling your phone at midnight? That's a discipline problem. So we end up with 5 different plans, 5 different trackers, 5 different 22 tips to fix your life articles bookmarked and never read again. But here's what almost every behavioral psychologist agrees on. Habits don't exist in isolation. They're connected. And there's research, going back to a study out of Duke University, showing that roughly 40% of what we do every day isn't actually a decision. It's automatic. It's a habit loop running in the background. Which means if you're only ever trying to consciously force new behaviors, you're fighting an uphill battle against your own brain's autopilot. So the real question isn't, how do I build 10 new habits? It's, which one habit, if I built it, would make the other 9 easier or unnecessary almost automatically? And there is an answer to that. The habit is this: making your bed every single morning. I know how that sounds. You clicked on a video expecting something profound, and I just told you to tuck in a blanket. But stick with me for a second, because this isn't about the bed. The bed is almost irrelevant. What matters is what making your bed actually is. It's the first completed task of your day, done within minutes of waking up, that requires 0 motivation, 0 willpower, and 0 decision-making. Researchers call this a keystone habit, a term popularized by Charles Duhigg, who studied how small behavioral changes ripple outward into completely unrelated areas of life. Admiral William McRaven famously built an entire commencement speech around this exact idea, arguing that starting your day with one small accomplished task creates momentum for the next task, and the next, and the next. Here's the actual mechanism behind why this works, and this is the part most videos skip. Your brain doesn't experience willpower as an unlimited resource. It's more like a battery that drains throughout the day. This is sometimes called ego depletion, and while the research on it has some debate, the underlying pattern is pretty consistent. The more decisions and self-control tasks you use up early, the less you have left later. So if your first move of the day is a win, however small, you're not draining that battery. You're doing the opposite. You're proving to your own brain, with evidence, that you're someone who follows through. And that's the real trick. It's not motivational fluff. It's identity reinforcement through action. Think about it this way, and this is where it gets interesting. Once your brain logs, I followed through on something today, it becomes slightly easier to follow through on the next thing. Not because you suddenly have more discipline, but because you've shifted, even microscopically, how you see yourself. And self-perception is one of the strongest predictors of future behavior in all of psychology. This is why people who build this one small habit often report, without even trying, that they start drinking more water, going to bed earlier, procrastinating less at work. Not because bed making has magic powers, because it's the domino that tips the next domino. Now, I want to pause here, because bed making is just the most well-known example. The actual habit that matters for you might be different. Here's how you find your own keystone habit in 3 questions. Question 1. What's something small you could do in under 5 minutes, first thing in your day, that requires no motivation to start? Not go to the gym. That takes motivation. We're talking about something almost embarrassingly small. Making the bed, drinking a glass of water, writing 1 sentence in a journal. Question 2. Does completing it give you a small, immediate sense of done? This matters more than people think. The habit needs a clear finish line, a completed task, not an ongoing one. Question 3. When you imagine doing it every day for 30 days straight, does it feel sustainable, even on your worst, most exhausted day? If the answer is yes to all 3, you've found your keystone habit. And I'd actually encourage you to pause the video right now and write down what yours is. Seriously, comment it below if you want, because I read these and I want to see what people land on. Now, here's where almost everyone messes this up, and I want to save you from doing it. People find their keystone habit, and within a week, they start stacking 5 more habits on top of it. Meditation, cold showers, no sugar, a new workout plan, all at once. And then, predictably, it collapses, and they think the keystone habit failed. It didn't fail. It got buried under too much, too soon. The entire point of a keystone habit is that it works slowly, in the background, by changing how you see yourself, not by being one item on a long checklist. Give it real time. 2, maybe 3 weeks of just that one thing before you add anything else. This is genuinely the difference between people who build lasting change and people who burn out by January 20th every single year. So here's what I want you to actually walk away with. Stop trying to overhaul your entire life in 1 week. Pick one small, doable, 5-minute action, something you do first before anything else every single day, and let it run for 3 weeks before you touch anything else. It's not really about the bed or the water glass or the journal sentence. It's about giving your brain daily proof that you follow through. Everything else, the workouts, the diet, the discipline you've been chasing, tends to get a whole lot easier once that foundation is actually in place. If this helped you think about habits differently, the next video I'd point you to is about learning habits, because once you've got your keystone habit locked in, that video's content won't be difficult to follow. Let me know in the comments what your keystone habit is going to be. I'll see you in the next one.